Thanks for tuning in to more NASCAR talk on Prime Sports NASCAR on the YouTube channel called Prime Sports Network. Eric Smith making his return before he ventures out west for the final race. Is that still a deal, Eric? Phoenix bound?
That's a deal. Yep, I'm Phoenix bound next. I'll be there next Saturday. I'll miss the truck race. Other than that, I'll be there Saturday, Sunday. So,
well,
shed the vest for some short sleeve shirts finally.
He's got the Back to the Future look going.
I do, Marty McFly.
Yes. And CJ Radune, you won't be heading out to Phoenix. You'll be watching the race in the comfort of your living room next week.
I will be watching the race in the comfort of my living room in probably equal temperature just inside.
Very nice. Very nice. All right. So let's first of all talk about another snooze fest, which we kind of anticipated at Kansas last week. And really, this just goes to show you once again that it's about a championship team and not just a championship driver, because of things that, especially last week. I mean, William Byron looked like once again he could have been the driver to beat, but he just doesn't have help. And I don't know specifically what else to say about some of these guys that, unfortunately, whether it's bad luck, what happened to Ryan Blaney and Austin Dillon getting into them, or you just don't get the help on pit road, or the engine just isn't the way it's supposed to be. But it's all working out really well for Kyle Larson at this point. All things are just at a perfectly aligned situation, Eric, for him to capture the championship. It doesn't matter what he does on Sunday. He is clearly the driver to beat now, and basically the team to beat.
Yeah, my main thing now for him is, can Hendrick improve on the 750 package? We expected this, right? The 550 to be a Hendrick dominated. We talked about that beginning of the round, that they should dominate these next 2 weeks. It's what can they do with the 750? So the thing is, he hasn't been great at Martinsville in the past, but they could use this as a 500 lap test session for Phoenix. They got the car ready. If I were them, I mean, you don't need to win this round or this race in this round. You just need to get good for Phoenix. So I think that gives them a leg up. I mean, yes, there's practice next week at Phoenix, but it's short. It's not going to get a whole lot of learning from it, where they've been massaging this Phoenix car for 2 weeks. And now you could pretty much put everything from that car to this one for Martinsville, and let's see if it works. So, yeah, I think it's theirs to lose at this point. I mean,
how similar are the tracks?
Just a similar package. They're different in the sense. You could compare it to Loudon or Richmond, which to me I'd be because Hendrick wasn't great at those two tracks. Gibbs and Penske were, but again, he's got all this time to work on this car. He's the only one that can feel comfortable to know he's going to be in Phoenix. Yes, Elliott, Hamlin should have enough of an advantage, but Kevin Harvick led by 42 points at this point last year, and he didn't make it. So anything can happen. Why put all your eggs in the Phoenix basket if you're not there yet? He's the only one that has. So the other factor, too, is we'll talk next week, but the championship 4 guys are going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 in Phoenix. We know he's going to be in the top 4, and you look at the top speed of everybody this year, it's him. So he's definitely the favorite right now.
I mean, it's not even close. And the only way it would be close, I guess, is if Denny Hamlin or maybe Chase Elliott were to put up a dominating effort on Sunday and to just signify that they're in this, and it's just not all a Kyle Larson show in Phoenix. And but you just got to keep the momentum, everything. He's been the top team, the top driver all year, and now he's hot again. The team is hot again at the right time. If you don't capture it this time, I mean, because he's even hotter than, say, Hamlin was last year. Even though Hamlin was in the same spot, Larson is just clearly, I mean, because he doesn't even have a Kevin Harvick by his side like last year. And even if Elliott and Hamlin do well on Sunday, it's still, everybody knows Larson is the overwhelming favorite. If you're going to win the championship, this is the opportunity to do it, but he's never done it before. And that's the other thing is, can Kyle Larson, will he be able to put all that pressure behind him as the overwhelming favorite and win the race next week, but he's set up to do so.
Yeah, he's led out of the playoffs. I broke this down thinking I do some pre-writing. I've got it ready for next week of a Hamlin and Larson versus the other two. And as of right now, coming to Martinsville, when I broke it down, 6 of the 8 playoff races they've won. They've won 63% of the stages and 60% of the laps. So they've led 1,400 of the 2,300 laps. It's just, you've got a good point that one of those two is probably going to be up front. Now here you can get I wouldn't be shocked if Hamlin won this weekend. I know we'll get to that. I think we all unanimously agree at that one. But at Phoenix, what happens if it's one of those two don't win the championship? And that's where the playoff thing will get debated, is their leaps and bounds. I don't think there's anybody in their zip code right now. But you get to Phoenix, it's going to be, I can't stress it enough, the other two guys in the championship 4 are going to be right there with them. There's a 50% chance neither of them win the championship now. So you're right. It's about building momentum this week for those guys to carry over into next week.
Now I'm looking at the NASCAR website. They have their the playoff standings, and I'd like to know who it is that what odds are they using? Because they have here, let's see. Yeah, what odds are they using? Because are they using the Martinsville odds? Or are they using the championship odds? This is NASCAR Cup Series playoffs. It has the points, the race wins, the stage wins, and the odds. But I can't tell what because they got Kyle Larson at plus 250. Which, if that's for the championship, well, that's a bonus. You know, if you can get 250 on Kyle Larson at championship. But if it's for the race, even that doesn't make a whole lot of sense because, you know, Truex is like 850. So I don't know what they're doing here on these odds here on this NASCAR website, but Elliott is 34 up, Hamlin 32 up. Any chance either of those drivers won't be in Phoenix?
I think there is a good chance one of them won't be. I think there is an equally good chance that they will be. But we saw last year Kevin Harvick had 9 wins and make it to the finale. And to your point earlier, Eric, yeah, there's a 50% chance that one of them won't win. One of them should win. But we had a similar situation last year. Harvick and Hamlin each won 9 races apiece, if I'm not mistaken, and neither one of them won it. It was Chase Elliott who picked up the momentum at the end. So you can debate the playoff format every single year, and we should, because I'm not a huge fan of it. Never have been. But, you know, it has produced some exciting cutoff races. Martinsville is certainly one of them, looking to be extremely exciting. But you're right, Larson's out there completely on his own. 9 wins to the season so far this year, which is head and shoulders above everybody else. 7 above Hamlin, who's the second best driver at the moment. But yeah, anything could happen. I mean, Elliott or Hamlin, one of them, like Eric said, was 40. Harvick was 42 points up, didn't make it through. You know, an early crash, an early problem. They go down out of the race very early. Somebody else steps up. A couple other people step up. Absolutely could slip through and not make it in.
And mathematically speaking, Eric, what will it take for Elliott or Hamlin to not make it to Phoenix?
I believe Hamlin's 15th or better. It doesn't matter what he does, and Elliott's 12th. Or I'm sorry, the other way around. Elliott's no. It's that way. Elliott's ahead of him. 12th or better for Elliott, 15th or better for Hamlin. So for those two, which kind of lead into our race picks, those two, that's why I struggled with them. But it's like they're very good at Martinsville. But if I were them, and it sounds like reading the press releases that they send out with their quotes, stage points. Get as many stage points. Don't care about the win of the first half of the race, because if you're that far up, they could pretty well get close to clinching it off stage points. If, like CJ said, if they screw up early, because you got to look, Hamlin's 31 points to Kyle Busch right now. So let's just say Hamlin doesn't get any stage points, pit road speeding penalty, engine blows, caught up in a wreck, 30th or worse, something crazy like that. And let's just say Kyle gets top 4 stage points, which he can definitely do there, and Truex wins, well, then all of a sudden Hamlin's out, Kyle's in the 3rd spot, and Truex gets the 4th. So that's why they have to worry a little bit, in a sense. Stage points are their friend. It's you got.
Well, they're going to start up front. So bottom line is you're just try to win the race. Just try to go fast and capture those stage points early. Just do what you would normally do, right?
Well, for those two, I would focus only on stage points because if you accumulate 10, 9 points each, first, second place finishes in the stages, you're going to be uncatchable in the fight. It's not going to matter what you do in the final stage because if somebody else wins, they're just going to bump Kyle out. Those two have got
So
so
what
many
could
points. They're
happen
not
then
going to be.
theoretically? Would it take some sort of a caution or two early before the stage breaks? So then
Yeah,
drivers have got to decide whether to stay out or pit, that kind of
Yes.
deal. That other if
Exactly.
there's not a lot of cautions though, and it's just everybody is pitting at the same time, then it just reverts to okay, well, just make sure you're faster than
Yes.
the other guy.
Exactly. If not, it would be in that situation where, you've seen the road courses, bigger tracks, 3 to go before the stage, there's a caution, or you're going to duck down pit road,
Okay.
punt the stage points. For them, you don't do that. For those two, just get your points.
Got it.
I think for Kyle and Blaney, even though 1 point is separating them, they've all made it pretty well clear from Kyle on down. You've got to win.
Sure.
That's the easiest path.
Yes.
So they may punt the points away. I'm like, I've got to position myself for the win because that winning takes care of itself. It doesn't matter what else happens. If you win, you're automatically in.
Which actually makes it a lot more of a risk that Elliott and Hamlin win the race.
Yes. Well, and they're in the position, if I were those two, the reason we want to get stage points is let's say Elliott's second or third and Hamlin's near him. But you got some hungry guys that need a win. Let's say Logano's there. Why run those guys hard and risk getting crashed and finishing behind? If I were them, hey, go ahead. It doesn't help me to win right now at this point because my points are going to get me by. That's why I worry about them late in the race because I feel like they'll be there late in the race. It's how aggressive are they late in the race because
unless they're first or
I don't
second.
want to get yes because if I'm Logano, just like he did with Truex a few years ago, I'm wrecking you. I'm sorry. I'm going to push you aside because I have to win. I think you're going to see that probably. I mean, I have that in that 5 burning questions tomorrow is the feuds that we've already seen a lot this year.
Yeah.
And every year we've seen somebody at the end of a race get mad. I mean, you got Hamlin and Elliott in 17. You got Logano and Truex in 18. Hamlin and Logano in 19. And then you got Harvick purposely wrecking Kyle Busch on the last lap last year to try to get that extra point. So I think you're going to see that on Sunday. Somebody is going to have to do that. That's why if I'm those two, not me. I don't want to ruffle any feathers. I just want to get through. So
the one thing though to remember with Martinsville earlier this season, if you look at the stage points, to Greg's point earlier, you need that decision forced on the team because if you look at the stage finishers, 12, 11, 19, and 9 finished 1 through 4. So Blaney, Hamlin, Truex, and Elliott. Then stage 2, Blaney, Hamlin, Truex, Elliott. All of them finished in the top 5 too at the end of the race. Yep. You need to throw some kind of wrench into their plans. Otherwise, you're going to have the same top 5 cars be the same top 5 cars every single way through. Martinsville just doesn't open up the strategies like we see at some of the other tracks. You need those cautions.
And look, it's not that none of us have backed away from Elliott and Hamlin. So even though we know there's a chance that they might just revert to, we've got the points, we've gobbled up some stage points early. We don't have to race this thing hard. We still believe that Elliott and Hamlin could very well win this race because, as we're going to go into their background of the track, they are definitely 2 of the top drivers to keep an eye on as far as the favorites. And before we do that, let's throw a bone to somebody who has taken over first place on our picks for the first time all season, CJ Radune. And by doing so, you're actually close to breaking even after 3 straight weeks in the plus category, going from plus 200, plus 200, plus 350. You are now just minus 159 in the rear, which means that you're going to get shut out and you'll be minus 559 next week.
Exactly right. That ends my streak.
It happens to all of us. Every time we get sniff, we sniff it, then we go back.
Yep.
Don't pay attention. picks this week.
It's the good and bad thing of the 400 points now. It's like, hey, it really benefits you to use it, but it really doesn't benefit you if you don't hit it, because you're going back 400 if you don't. Yeah. So
if you win this week and you're like plus 250 next week, I'm not using up all my money. I have $50.
Well, here's where it's interesting: is if we can all get around the break-even point, we know we know it's gonna be one of 4 drivers that win next week. You just break it down by those.
But the odds are gonna be so low. So
they're gonna be 2 and 3 to 1,
especially Larson. Yeah, Larson will probably be even. So
exactly.
Yeah. As far as some of the notes at Martinsville, one of 3 short tracks, 11 of the last 12 winners have started in the top 10. 6 of those in the top 5. What's interesting about that, though, is that there have not been anybody that has won from the top row in the last 16 races at Martinsville. How crazy is that? Is that, yeah, you want to start in the top 10. Yes, you want to start in the top 5, but don't start in the top row. I mean, that's kind of weird.
That is a weird stat for there, but yeah, it's a little thing too. I learned about Martinsville is what they used to do until recently is you qualify with a different gearing than you do when you race. So sometimes the guys, like when it becomes now my mind just slipped of what it's called. I haven't done it so long. Where you put the cars away and you don't touch them overnight. Impound. I'm say invert. Impound. Yes. We haven't done that in a while.
No.
That if you have the gearing to go for the pole or a front row or a good starting spot, you may not have the gearing for the race, because they said the gearing, Martinsville's a track, you don't want to overdrive it. You don't want to go too fast, but in qualifying, you're only doing 2 laps. So you want to go too fast. So maybe it could be a gearing thing to where those guys are on the wrong gear. Where the other guys in the top 5 may just be fast on the race day gear. So, but now, I mean, I think that's out the window the last 2 years, only because we're not even qualifying there. We're just kind of lining up and racing. So that's kind of a moot point. And I think it goes to this weekend because the pole winner's Kyle Larson, and he's got 1 top 5 in his last 8 there. So that could
happen again.
Keep going away.
Well, the 2 co-favorites, CJ has taken them both, Kyle Larson and Martin Truex. And Larson, though, even though he's on this hot streak and all that, he has raced here this season, and he did not lead a lap. Finished 5th, and he's only had 2 top 5s, and he's only led 35 laps at this track. So considering all that, and the fact that there's a possibility, like Eric said, that it's not about this week, it's about getting ready for next week, that I don't know about Kyle Larson. This is a good week not to take him, but he is 4 to 1, so you're getting pretty good odds for a driver that normally would be like under 2 to 1 at this point, how hot he is and where he is in the standings. Martin Truex Jr., meanwhile, won this year at a track that he's won 3 of the last 4 races with 745 laps led in those 4 races. The only problem is, the reason I stood away, and I know both you guys took Truex, is just how he's racing. I just don't like I just don't like the way they're going right now. Both the Truex team and the Kyle Busch team. I just don't feel that they're ready to win this week or next week. But you've got both drivers, CJ.
Yeah, I took both, and I took Larson for 2 reasons. I think any other track, his odds would be significantly lower this week, and probably definitely would want to stay away. But given the fact that he's on 3, I've picked him all 3 times, I got to go for 4, stay on the bandwagon rather than jump off early. But this is a tough track for him. The reason why I am sticking with him is that his teammate Chase Elliott won last year. If you look at the top 5 from earlier this season, yeah, Gibbs is great. They dominated at this track. Penske's great as well. You had 3 Hendricks in the top 5. One of them was Kyle Larson. So they're there. Kyle Larson, with the momentum he's got at his back right now, if he's there, I think he can win. Plus, we've heard in interviews from him in the past 2 weeks that, and even from his crew chief, that they don't want to take a week off. They don't want to focus on Phoenix. They think the best way to go into Phoenix is by continuing to race the exact same way that they've raced every single week, which is going out and trying to win. So I don't think that's going to change this week when you're 1 week away from the finale. Then as far as Truex goes, I mean, do you have to do you have to justify your Truex pick at Martinsville? 3 of the last 4 times I think he's won. So
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, he may be racing well, but he's excellent at this track. This is where he got his win earlier this season. Only led 20 laps. So, quite honestly, when I had my list of drivers of people I was going to choose, he and one other one, who I will not mention right now, were the two that I needed to drop one of them to figure out how to make it work to actually make money on everybody. And he was very close to being the one that I ended up dropping.
You put the same amount of money on both drivers. Who's your top pick?
Larson.
Okay. Eric, you only decided on Truex out of the two.
Yeah, just like CJ said, he's got 3 of his last 4 there he won, and the one he didn't, he led 129 laps. And I feel like Gibbs with their 750 package, yes, Hamlin is – you got 3 dogs in the fight, but you also know Hamlin's probably good. You're going to give a lot of attention to the Truex of Kyle, and Truex is the guy that's been the best there. And I feel like the only time he's really been good this playoffs, we're on 750 tracks. He didn't do very good on the 550 tracks. That's where his decline has been. But you go back to Richmond, he won. So I feel like back against the wall at Martinsville, he's proven more times than not to come out ahead. And based off of what everybody else is doing and what they need to do there, I just feel like as long as he's in position to win in the end, I think he can do it. The only thing I question with him is, will he use his bumper to do it? You don't see that whole often with Truex. You see him more or less getting pushed aside. Is he going to be on the beneficiary of somebody pushing him out of the way? Which is why I chose the next 2 guys on the line below, because I wonder if somebody's going to – couple cars going to wreck in front, and those guys are just going to skate on by to win. So I feel like that could happen as well.
Yeah, we all took the 2 6-1 shots, Elliott and Hamlin. And Elliott is the defending champ. He led 236 laps in this race last year, and then was second earlier this year. Didn't lead a lap, though. But he seems to be coming in a good shape, finishing second last week. He also has 6 top 10s in his last 7 at the track, with 4 top 5s, 2 runner-ups, and a win. Hamlin, meanwhile, has 16 top 5s and 5 wins in 31 races. So basically 50% of the time, he's in the top 5 at this track. He's led over 1,800 laps. He led 276 laps earlier this year when he finished 3rd. And so I just think, look, for me, if I was solely could only take 2 drivers, these are the only 2 drivers I take, CJ, and I just split them up.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Elliott's got a lot going for him. I mean, when you talk about momentum and building up to the finale, Elliott's doing it perfectly. If you look at his trajectory over the past couple of weeks, that team has come on strong. He's figured out how to get himself into a position to be comfortable in this last cutoff race to be able to make it to the top 4. And it's going to take some kind of disaster for him not to go there. And then I just feel like this race this week is Hamlin's to lose. He's won in every single round so far. He hasn't won this year. It's been a slugfest between him and Larson pretty much all season, and certainly through the playoffs. This is a track, to Eric's point, where Gibbs has the advantage. I would be shocked if Hamlin did not come out and, be fighting for the win on the last lap.
Eric, you picked both of these guys, and you also put money equally on both of these drivers. Who do you favor?
Probably Elliott, only in the sense that he finished second in the spring, and then he won this race last year. He was second last week. Like CJ said, I feel like Hendrick has closed that gap between them. He's starting up front. We know he's aggressive, where Hamlin seems like the type of guy that would I'm just going to ride around, take my finish. Elliott's a guy that I think he wants to win. I think Elliott just needs to feel what it's like to win again, because he hasn't won since July 4th. And you don't want to go into the final race and be like, hey, I haven't won in almost half the season. And also, I don't know if you noticed, have you seen the last time Elliott's won on an oval? It was last year. It was these 2 races. He hasn't won on an oval in a year. So it's time to get a win. I think for him, he needs to win. And I would say Elliott to be the top between the 2 only for that reason. I think Hamlin's probably a better driver there. I mean, half of his 31 starts has been a top 5. I mean, that's a crazy stat in itself. But what I thought was intriguing was the 6-1 guys. I thought probably should have been the 4-1 guys, and the 4-1 guys should have been. I feel like they flipped it. I feel like they're going off Larson because of how hot he is right now, where Elliott's a better driver at this track, and he's coming off a second place finish. So I thought, hey, you're going to give me him for 6-1, I'm going to go on that because I debated Larson, but I'm getting 6-1 odds
Yes.
for a better driver at this track. And I thought it would, and honestly, the next guy with Blaney, I know you took him, Greg, but he finished runner up both races there last year.
Yeah.
He was leading. He won both stages in the spring race. And if not for running over, was it a fuel or a pit hose? I think the last pit stop was what took him out of the lead. That's why he didn't finish the top two, or he probably would have won
11th.
that race. Yeah, and that was only because he was penalized. So I would honestly, which would have made it even more intriguing, gone Elliott Hamlin both 4-1, Truex and Blaney 6-1, and Larson 8-1, and then what you think about, okay, now where do you want to spend your money? Because that's probably a little more indicative of what it should have been, because I just ran out of money, or I would have gone more in a Blaney too. But out of that grouping right there, I would honestly say Blaney's as good as all of them.
Yeah, the Penske drivers, Blaney's 8-1, Keselowski 9-1, Logano 11-1. Now, the only person who took anyone in Penske besides Blaney, like you said, I'm the only one to take Blaney, was you, Eric. You took Logano. Blaney's 11th or better in 7 of his last 8, including 5 top 5s and 2 runner-ups. He led 157 laps this year. Then you got Keselowski, who's got 11 top 5s and 2 wins in 23 races and almost 900 laps led. And if you take out the crash that he had this year, his previous 12 races, 11 top 10s, 10 top 5s, runner-up and 2 wins with 881 laps led at this track. And then you have Logano, who does have a win. He dominated in 2018 race, leading 309 laps. He's led over 1,000 in 25 races here, finishing 6th earlier this year. But yeah, Blaney was the one, CJ, because remember last week we talked about all he has to do is just don't do anything stupid. Don't be over aggressive. And for the most part, he wasn't. He was doing everything he was supposed to do, minding his own business when Austin Dillon got loose and wrecked him. And there goes Ryan Blaney. He goes from potentially entering this week in 2nd in points to being on the outside in points, because something that, he had no control over.
I feel like we jinxed him in some form or fashion. But he was the driver I was alluding to earlier that was on my list that I had to choose one because I didn't have the money to make them all positive. I wanted so badly him this week because of how good he is. I think he's the best Penske of the 3 to come out and have a chance at winning this weekend. I just couldn't take him because of the luck. I mean, he was doing everything right. And circumstances completely out of his control. Happened the entire season with his team doing it to him. So I just don't feel like luck is on his side for whatever reason. Do I think that he can win? And do I think that he can get into the finale at Phoenix? And do I think if he gets there, can he win the championship? Absolutely. Hell yeah. He's been fantastic. I just think circumstances continue to let him down. I wasn't going to go against fate. I think I saw fate play out in terms of what I would expect from Ryan Blaney this season last week. So I couldn't choose him this week, though I do think he's the best of the 2 or of the 3. And then of the remaining 2, I would put Logano ahead of Keselowski. I think Logano with the longer-term future at the organization. Keselowski's great, but Logano's shown his speed with over 1,000 laps led here throughout his career. As you said, he's only got the 1 win. Keselowski's has 2, but Logano, 4 of the last 4 have been 8th or better at Martinsville. Extremely good.
And Eric, in my mind, if Blaney, unless one of these drivers, and that could be Truex, unless one of these drivers wins a race and guarantees a spot in Phoenix, if that happens, okay. If that does not happen, and Ryan Blaney, for whatever reason, does not enter the Final 4, there's going to be a driver in the Final 4 next week that really is just not going to have any chance. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's okay. They're going to be the clear long shot. They probably don't even deserve to be there. But, again, if they could win this week, that's different, because Blaney has just been better than those drivers recently and maybe most of the season, and he does deserve a break. But it doesn't mean he's going to get in. If he can avoid, in my opinion, if he avoids bad luck and his team doesn't let him down, I think he'll be in Phoenix with a chance to win the championship.
Yeah, like CJ said, I feel like the bad luck. I mean, look, Blaney, the whole reason we're even talking about points and people race their way in right now, because if he doesn't wreck, what was it, 27 points was the deficit from fourth to fifth? It was going to take a must win, and I don't think it's as exciting going into this week instead of having 6 points separate these like 4 drivers for one spot. But I just, until I see Blaney win a race in this big moment, it just was hard to pick him. Where I know Logano can, and I'm getting him for 11-1. And like CJ said, how good he is at Martinsville, and plus it would be completely NASCAR-like for Logano to win this week. Who, check my notes, hasn't won in 27 races, and his only win this year was on a dirt track.
Yeah.
To win Martinsville, to come back the next week and win the championship over the 2 dominant guys.
Yeah.
That is NASCAR. It's like that's probably going to happen, because if you look at Phoenix and you look at what happened in the spring race, the 3 best drivers were, yes, Hamlin, Truex won, Logano led the most laps, and then you had Blaney that was up front until he had another late problem. So I think we're going to get really good odds on the driver that wins this race, because I think it's going to be between a Blaney, a Logano, a Keselowski, somebody like that. And then you go to the next week, because, I mean, look at Keselowski. His only wins on a super speedway. He hasn't won in 24 races. Truex has only won Richmond, and it's been months before he won there. Blaney did win Daytona and Michigan, but they're not similar tracks to these. So it's Kyle hasn't won since Pocono, which is 15 races ago. So you got a lot of guys coming into this week that are having to get a win that haven't won in a while, or haven't won on a normal track, super speedway, dirt, or a triangle for Kyle Busch. That's what we're down to. And I just don't trust. Kyle's got them. I just don't like where they are. Yep. I don't like where Keselowski's at. And it came down to Truex proven he can win there. Logano's proven he can win there. Blaney hasn't yet. So I wouldn't be shocked though if Blaney came out and won. I think where Chase Elliott's moment was last year, when we've all questioned, when's this going to be it for him? Sunday can be Ryan Blaney's moment. And I think that'd be good for NASCAR too, to have another young guy.
It'd be so much better, because like I said, we'll have 4 legitimate contenders that anybody can.
And how about a championship 4 of Chase Elliott, young guy, defending champion, Ryan Blaney, young guy, first time, Kyle Larson, first time, with many to come. And then you got the elder statesman of Hamlin. I think that'd be great for NASCAR. Who's never won a championship.
Yeah.
So it just, the writing's on the wall, and I think it's going to make this. Blaney made this weekend more, or I should say Austin Dillon made this weekend more interesting for what he did to Blaney. Or I don't think we're even having this discussion. I think Blaney's in a Denny Hamlin situation where he's so many points up, just get stage points, and he's on by.
But again, let's keep in mind that this can happen to Elliott and Hamlin on Sunday, where they're just driving along, nothing's happening, and boom, somebody smacks into them, and they're done for the day, and maybe that knocks them out. It could happen. So
Kevin Harvick's lurking in the wings there. I mean, if he is going to get his payback, stage 1, lap 5, full send into turn 1, and hey, NASCAR, I know, said I don't get why NASCAR sat him down, other than they said it was a one-sided combo. Maybe it was NASCAR, thank you guys. You guys want to, instead of them saying don't ruin the championship, maybe it's, hey, drivers, boys be boys, we like this attention. Because the only problem is that would upstage the championship for next week. That's all we'd be talking about if Harvick sends them into the wall early. Because
but that'd be
you
good.
Don't get any
in a
stage
way.
Points. It'd take a lot of attention. I think that would be what they need, other than a vanilla race. Because I do think majority of this race is going to be vanilla. I think it's going to come down to the final stage, unless, like CJ said, you're going to get which driver is going to go off strategy first. Because if you just follow, let's be honest, Elliott, Hamlin, probably Blaney up front, Truex, those 4 are just going to be running away with it. Well, who's going to be the one of those 4 and the rest? It's going to be the first guy to be like, we can't just ride anymore.
Yeah.
I got to do something different. And then maybe that caution doesn't fly, or maybe it does fly. But until you get to that point, how are you going to do anything different? I'm not going to try to wreck somebody in lap 200 knowing that I've got 300 laps. Somebody can do a payback on me. I don't want to do that either.
Yeah.
So
Well,
there's a lot of scenarios for this weekend that at least makes it's exciting. It's in a good spot. It's better than a 1.5-mile cookie
oh
cutter
yeah,
track
definitely.
to decide the championship for.
Nobody wants to see that. No. Thank goodness.
How about the crowd? How about the crowd? How about NASCAR finally stepped people? Nobody there, nobody at Texas. Since we've been saying this, nobody wants to watch these, and I think that I'm glad they're getting moved next year in the playoffs because I think you're going to see if this is the warning. If you don't show up at these races, that race isn't going to be there anymore. I think Texas and Kansas need to be on alert because
good.
I think the wind blew everybody away or something. Nobody was. I didn't see anybody in the stands.
Yeah, well, that worked out.
If you could read Kansas Speedway in the stands, there's a problem.
Yeah.
Because those are the good seats, and I could read it what it said.
That's well, let's hope that it's again, we'll have a new car, I guess, next year, I guess. So we'll see if that makes any changes. We'll have more than enough time to talk about that. The only other driver I just wanted to quickly mention was Byron, because he's 11-01 and he's been in contention here the last few weeks, but things just happen. So sooner or later, you get the feeling that maybe he's just gonna okay, the season's like over. Who knows? But I was close to putting a little bit of money on Byron because of how good he's looked over the last few weeks. I think he could be one of the drivers. Now, the only thing is he's 11-01, so his odds aren't all that great, which is the reason why I decided to put my long shot money on Bell, Reddick, and Di Benedetto instead of maybe all of it on Byron, CJ.
Yeah, I think Bell is a good choice for a long shot, considering he's got the Joe Gibbs package. And yeah, Gibbs had the advantage at these tracks earlier in the season. I do think Hendrick has closed the gap, which is why I didn't mind putting money on Elliott and Larson. Byron would be another logical choice. So I think he's lining up 12th, if I'm not mistaken. So he's outside, or 11th. So he's outside the top 10, but only barely finished runner-up here in 2019 in the fall. He was 4th at the track earlier this year. And like you said, of all the drivers, these last handful of races that have really stepped up their game and shown that they can still be competitive, but they're not in the playoffs, it's Byron and Harvick to me. And Byron, he led 9 laps in the spring race as well. So nothing wrong with going with Byron. I do think that Bell might be the slightly better long shot play just because of the Joe Gibbs 750 package. But again, I think that advantage that they had is much narrower than it was at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, because the other thing with Byron, he's only led 9 laps in his career at this racetrack. Yep. Bell, meanwhile, 4 straight top 8s coming into this race. So he's hot. He's got 2 top 5s at Richmond this year. Reddick, I know he doesn't have this great history at this track. He was 8th earlier this year, but I just like the way he's racing right now. He just seems to be putting himself in position these last couple of races where it's like, hey, is he going to steal this? But it's like a momentary kind of deal, and then something happens, and maybe he's being too aggressive, and then he's just as quickly as he's there, he's not there anymore. And then Di Benedetto, the same thing, because he's been pretty solid here the last 3 trips to Martinsville, and we know how desperate he wants to win. So that's the reason I put a little bit of money on those long shots. Who would you have put any money on as far as long shots, Eric?
Probably Bell, like for what you guys said, because of his odds. But Byron, it's like we asked all year, what's the guy got to do to get respect? And now in the second to last race, you group him with the playoff drivers. He's 11-1. Literally, the only drivers with him are playoff guys. And it's like, and I get it. He's running good enough to be with those guys. He just hasn't won yet. And 2 times ever in Martinsville, I can't say ever because we haven't been doing playoffs forever, but since 2004, has a non-playoff driver won this race. And only 4 times has a non-playoff driver won the 9th race in general, because Martinsville didn't used to be in this spot. So I just don't feel like that's going to happen with what's at stake. So that's why if it would, 25-1 get you a little more bang for your buck than 11-1. But the fact that there's the next grouping is 18-1 and he's listed, they're putting him in the right spot. It's just, It's at the wrong time. I just don't see it.
That's the only thing with the playoff structures. I like all the drama of every 3 races. Everyone has to figure out a way. But it's almost like, can you figure out a way where, because like you said, CJ, it's like Byron and Harvick. It's like they're actually racing a lot better than Truex and Keselowski and Kyle and Logano. It's like, shouldn't it be a way to figure out how they could still be in contention for the playoffs, because they deserve to be? So if they could find a way to tinker it a little bit, and we even talked about this, and we'll talk more about it next week, is just allowing more drivers with an opportunity to win the championship in the last race. Maybe that's
what would be cool. You have to be in the playoffs, so you have to make the top 16 at the beginning of the playoffs. If you get knocked out, if you're able to win a race in the next round, you bump your way back in.
I like that. I was even going to say the easier one too. I like that one better. Would be, because they still count points, because once you're eliminated, you go to a predetermined point. If take this round, for example, usually you get 3 different winners. You don't have somebody win 2. But we know there's a wild card spot. Well, instead of using that wild card spot, like, okay, he's the top point getter this round. Well, he didn't advance anyways by a win. Group him back with everybody else, and whoever has the most points accumulated in the playoffs gets that spot. Because I bet you Byron and Harvick are going to be way up, because Harvick mentioned coming into this weekend, he's the top point scorer of the guys, not like he'd be 9th right now. He's not of the top 8, but I bet you when it resets after 4 guys are eliminated this weekend, he's probably right there in the running for 5th. He was 5th last year. So if you're running that good, yeah, it gives you more of an incentive the rest of the playoffs to just keep going. Because to me, it'd be hard to keep going to playoffs. I'm going to eliminate. I'm like, what do I have to race for? I'm not going to win. I'm just going through the motions. This would at least give you something to fight for, and it would give the guys that you might be 80 points out going into this race, but I still might be able to be good on enough points against everybody else's accumulation of the playoffs to take that wild card spot. Because, yeah, you're just eliminating Byron, Reddick, and Harvick. I can make a case are running better than Kyle Busch, Martin Truex Jr., Logano, and Keselowski right now. Because, like your point earlier, Greg, somebody's got to take that 4th spot to Phoenix. And if you just take accumulation of the first 35 races, that person at 4th spot really doesn't deserve it over somebody else right now.
Yep.
So,
I mean, even if William Byron was that driver and he didn't win Martinsville, we would still be okay. We're all right with that. We could see him still winning the championship. He's had a good year. He's really racing well, but he just doesn't have a shot on the new way the system is.
All year he's been 15-1, 18-1, 17-1. I mean, now he's 11-1. They're taking notice. They're saying, we think you're the 9th. They're right now basically saying you're the best driver not in the playoffs, is what they're saying.
Well, the last couple of weeks he's been basically 2nd behind Larson most of the race.
It's been Larson, Byron, and Reddick. Those are your 3 with Harvick right there. It's like 3 of the 4 aren't even playoff drivers or championship eligible. They were playoff drivers, but they're not even championship eligible. So, yeah, that's what makes it interesting.
We're going to have a lot to talk about for sure, especially after next week, leading up until the 2022 season with the new car and all that. But next week, when are you heading out to Phoenix?
Saturday. So we can have a show.
You'll be Saturday and Sunday?
Yep. Okay. Yep. I'm going straight from airport to the track. So I'll be there. Cup. They brought back practice and qualifying. This is the last race weekend without practice and qualifying. So we'll have I will be there.
You mean they brought it back for next season?
Yeah, it's going to be next season.
All racing?
All racing.
Oh,
but from what I heard is going, here's what I heard, though. It is going to be a 35 to 45-minute practice session. That's it. And then they're going to give you like a 20-minute cool down period. And then you're going to qualify. And then you're going to race a few hours after that. They're just going to make it all a one-day show still. But they're going to give you some practice all in one day.
Practice, qualifying, racing.
Yep. I don't see the point of practicing for 45 minutes. What are you really learning? You learn what direction to or not to go, but how do you make an adjustment to go back out and see if it works?
And then you're going to throw in the weather, which is always interesting. We're going to get situations where they're going to be worrying too much about qualifying and practice, and then by the time they race, it'll start raining.
Yep. Yeah, you're going to definitely get into that. Yeah. So, but this weekend or next weekend, they'll practice Friday, the Cup guys specifically. Saturday, they qualify at 4:00 Phoenix time. The only reason I know that is my plane lands at 12:30. So I'm going straight to the track. So I'll be there in time for that. and then the Xfinity race is that night, and then the Cup race will be Sunday. So in theory, we can do a live show Saturday and Sunday, one of the 2 days. Knock on wood.
Okay.
I'm flying Southwest. They've had some issues, so let's hope I'm not
What
stranded
kind of
in Denver,
issues?
Colorado. Oh, you didn't hear about all that a few weeks ago?
Nobody wants to admit kind of it.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. All right.
I'm flying out early enough, so I should be there, I would think. My flight leaves Indy at 9 a.m., so luckily the plane should be here to get me to Denver for an hour layover from Denver to Phoenix. And the West Coast planes, I would hope, should be there. So
Well, hopefully we won't get like an early snowstorm.
I hope not.
Denver.
And going to Denver, you
never know.
You never know. It's Denver.
Yeah. All right, so that's next week. Again, we're going to have if anybody wants to check out our futures, our weekly futures, all our picks, and our fantasy standings, you can check them out. They'll be posted, I'm sure, by tonight. I would guess, because I got you the information a little late this week. So just check out racereviewonline.net for that. And RotoWire, you're going to be doing the usual, CJ, right, for both the Cup and the Xfinity Series.
Yep, we got trucks this weekend too. And so
truck.
all of them whittling down to the final 4. Both Xfinity and truck are on Saturday. I'll have my fantasy previews up for all the races by end of day, or Friday afternoon, should say. And then after the Cup race, we will preview the final 4 at Phoenix on rotowire.com.
Awesome. And Eric, you've got what else you're working on?
Just be doing all the previews. All those should be up. The burning questions up tomorrow, and then the recaps over the weekend, and pulling for good old. Hopefully, Stuart Friesen and Daniel Hemrick can get to the championship 4 in their respective divisions, and then not win Phoenix. So you can have 2. I always pull for the guy that didn't win during this regular season to win the championship.
Why not?
Like Crafton did a few years ago. Hemrick is.
What about Matt Crafton? Matt Crafton hasn't
a couple
won.
years ago. Oh yeah, he hasn't won yet either. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and he's already in. So you got Crafton doing it. Hemrick's the best. Hemrick has never won a NASCAR race before, ever, in trucks, Xfinity, or Cup. And if he could win the championship next week without ever winning a race, would be the best thing ever. It'd be completely NASCAR for you. That hey, the guy's never won a race, but he's got a championship trophy. So
that would be awesome. We'll all pull for that. It's basically.
So I'll be working on that kind of stuff this weekend for the truck. Yeah.
All right, sounds good. And we'll figure out we're still going to do our actual pre-race show next week, same day, Wednesday.
Sounds good.
Okay, sounds good. And then you'll be off to Phoenix over the weekend, and we'll do some live coverage all weekend while Eric's in Phoenix. Guys, appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.